Hello everyone and welcome to today's session, and today we'll be discussing NCERT Exemplar questions for the chapter Evolution. Okay, this is the part 2 of the lecture. This is the disclaimer. What are the objectives of today's session? So today we'll be discussing the concepts, the basic concepts related to the chapter Evolution by working through the NCERT Exemplar questions. So these questions, they are based on certain concepts. We'll discuss these concepts by discussing these exemplar questions. Okay, so we'll be discussing NCERT exemplar questions for the chapter number 6, which is evolution. So these questions have been categorized into various groups. So we have multiple choice questions, very short answer type questions, short answer type questions, and long answer type questions. Let's begin with the first question. So let's discuss multiple choice question first. So you'll be given 4 options, A, B, C, D. You have to choose the correct answer from these options. Okay, what is the first option? Viviparity is considered to be more evolved because. Okay, the options are, first option is the young ones are left on their own. Second option is the young ones are protected by a thick shell. Option number C, the young ones are protected inside the mother's body and are looked after they are born, leading to more chances of survival. And option number D, the embryo takes a long time to develop. So what will be the correct answer? Let's have a look at the answer. See, option number C is the correct answer here. Let's have a look at the explanation. So let's understand what is viviparity and oviparity. Okay, basically what is viviparity? So here in viviparity, the baby develops inside the mother's body where it is safe and can grow in a protected environment. Okay, after the baby is born, the mother and sometimes the father also take care of the baby by feeding, by protecting, and by helping the baby to grow. Okay, here the chances of survival are more because the baby is protected inside the mother and it is cared after the birth also. So it has better chance of living and growing up healthy. Examples of mammals, animals like humans, dogs, and cats are examples of the organisms that give birth to live young ones and they care for them after the birth as well. Okay, what is oviparity? Organism which lay eggs, they are known as oviparous organisms. Okay, so they lay eggs outside their bodies. Clear? Like on the ground or in a nest. Now the eggs of these animals often have a hard shell which is made up of calcium, similar to you will find on a chicken egg. So this shell help protect the developing embryo inside. Okay, now after the animal lays the egg, the young animals that hatch from these eggs usually have to take care of themselves without help from their parents. So they have to take care of themselves by their own. Okay, that's why there is low survival chances because these young ones are on their own without parental protection or care. Okay, so they're high risk. They will not survive to adulthood. Okay, and they have to find their food themselves and they have to avoid predators by themselves. Next question, fossils are generally found in. The options are sedimentary rocks, igneous rocks, metamorphic rocks, and any type of rock. What is the correct answer? Okay, so here the correct answer is option number A, which is sedimentary rocks. Let's have a look at the explanation. So fossils are found in sedimentary rocks. Okay, what are fossils? They are the remains of the hard part of the animals. Okay, they are discovered in a type of rock called as the sedimentary rocks. Okay, so these rocks are created when small particles like silt and fine dirt, sand, or calcium carbonate, okay, they pile up over time. Now it takes millions of years for these particles to compress and harden into rocks. Now this process usually occurs in bodies of water such as lakes or the sea, where the particles can settle to the bottom. Now, when animals die in these environments, their bodies often sink and become covered by layers of the sediments. Over a long period, the buried remains of these animals get preserved and eventually turn into fossils within the sedimentary rocks. Next question. For the MN blood group system, the frequency of N and N alleles are 0.7 and 0.3 respectively. Now, the expected frequency of MN blood group bearing organism is likely to be. What are the options? 42%, 49%, 9% or 58%? What is the correct answer? Okay, here the correct answer is option number A, 42%. Okay, now let's have a look at the explanation. Okay, so here answer is 42%. Means 42% of the organisms are expected to have the MN blood group. Okay, now according to Hardy-Weinberg equation, which is P square plus 2PQ plus Q square equal to 1. Okay, so this is the mathematical formula used to predict the genetic makeup of a population that is not evolving. Okay, this equation helps to understand the frequencies of different genetic types in a large, ideally non-evolving population. So this equation is used to calculate the allele frequencies. Okay, in this equation, P is equal to frequency of the M alleles. Okay, now then what will be P square? It will be the frequency of homozygous dominant individuals. Then Q, this is the frequency of the N alleles. So what will be Q square? It is the frequency of homozygous recessive individuals. Okay, here we are considering capital M as dominant, small this N as the recessive allele. So what will be 2PQ then? It is the frequency of the heterozygous individuals. Okay, let's continue the answer. So we can put in the values now. Okay. So after putting the values in this equation, okay, and after solving it, you will get 2PQ should be 0.24 or 0.24. This is the frequency of the heterozygous individuals. Okay, which is 42%. Next question, which type of selection is industrial melanism observed in moth, which is Byston betularia. So scientific name of moth is Byston betularia. Options are stabilizing, directional, disruptive or artificial. What is the correct answer? Let's have a look at the answer. Option number B, direction selection is the correct answer. So let's understand what is direction selection. So in this type of natural selection, one particular trait becomes more common in a population. Okay. Clear? Because this trait gives individuals a better chance to survive and reproduce. Clear? For example, during an industrial, you can say during the post-industrialization era, dark-colored moths survive better in the polluted areas. Okay. In directional selection, individuals on one side, or you can say at the end of the trait spectrum, survive better and have more offerings. So this causes the population state to shift towards that side over time. Okay, what is stabilizing selection? So here the average sized individuals are favored, means the intermediate phenotype is favored. Okay, rather than the extremes. Okay. For example, human babies born with an average weight are more likely to survive compared to a very heavy or very light babies. Okay, now let's talk about disruptive selection. Here the both extreme phenotypes are being favored over the intermediate phenotype. Okay, for instance, in some birds, those with very large or very small beaks, they will survive because they can eat specific seeds. Okay, so in that area, large size seeds and small size seeds are only present. Okay, and the medium sized beaks, birds having medium sized beak, they will struggle to find the food because there is no medium sized food. Now, what is artificial selection? So here in artificial selection, desirable traits are chosen. Okay, so humans actively choose organisms with desirable traits and breed them so that their offerings inherit those traits. Okay, for example, a farmer might select cows that produce more milk to breed so that future generation also produce a huge amount of milk. So here in this image, you can see stabilizing, disruptive, and directional selection. In stabilizing, intermediate phenotype is being favored. In disrupting, the extreme phenotypes are being favored. And in directional, only one of the phenotype is being favored. Next question, the most accepted line of descent in human evolution is. Okay, so you have been given 4 options A, B, C, D. You have to choose the correct answer from these options. Okay, option number C is the correct answer here. Ramapithecus, then Homo habilis, and there's Homo sapiens. This is the most accepted line of descent in the human evolution. Okay, so in this table, you can see the characteristics of the various, you can say, the evolved humans. Clear? So let's talk about Ramapithecus. Okay, they survived around 14 to 15 million years ago. They walked erect on its hind legs and they evolved from the Dryopithecus. Then Australopithecus, they lived from 4 to 1.5 million years ago in caves, had omnivores, died fully bipedal hominid. Hominid means human-like. Then Homo habilis, first human-like being, did not eat meat, had brain capacity of 650 to 800 cc, cubic centimeter. Homo erectus lived about 1.5 million years ago, brain capacity is around 900 cc and ate meat. And Homo sapiens, which is the modern man, brain capacity is from, you can say, 1300 to 1450. It has erect posture and limbs are straight. Next question, which of the following is an example of linked species? The options are lobefish, dodo bird, seaweed, and chimpanzee. What is the correct answer? Let's have a look at the answer. See option number A, lobefish is the correct answer. So lobefish is an example of linked species. Okay. So around 350 million years ago, some fish had strong muscular fins that allowed them not only to swim, but also to move onto land for short periods, making them transition between 2 environments. Okay. So these were called lobe and they evolved into first amphibians that lived on both land and water. For example, coelacanth. So this fish with lobed fins like the coelacanth eventually evolved into first amphibians. Okay, so linked species is a species which has features of 2 different species. Okay. Okay. One of the options was dodo. So dodo, it is a extinct flightless bird. Okay. It is extinct now. Then seaweed, they are multicellular benthic marine algae. Chimpanzees, they are the closest living relative to the humans. Okay, they share the most recent common ancestor with the humans. Next question is column-based question. So you have to match the scientists listed under column 1 with the ideas listed under column 2, and you have to select the correct answer from the 4 options given to you, A, B, C, and D. So what will be the correct answer? So let's have a look at the explanation. See, option number B is the correct answer. Let's have a look at the explanation. See, Charles Darwin came up with the idea that species evolve over time through a process where the best suited individuals survive. Best suited individuals, they survive and pass on their traits. So he talked about the natural selection, means nature is selecting here. Okay, now struggle for existence is there. Okay, so in the fight for the survival, the organism with beneficial traits are more likely to live and produce offerings, passing on these beneficial traits to the next generation. So, Perrin, he proposed the abiogenesis theory. So, according to abiogenesis theory, the life might have started from the non-living materials. Okay, so there was inorganic materials. These are inorganic compounds. They combined together to form simple organic compound. These simple organic or compounds combine to form complex organic compounds. Okay. Now the idea of abiogenesis is that life begins from non-living material like chemicals rather than from the living organisms. Let's talk about Lamarck. So Lamarck suggested that if an animal uses a part of its body, okay, then this part will grow stronger, and if the organism is not using that organ, that organ will become weaker and it will disappear over the generations. We talked about the use and disuse of the organ. Wagner, he proposed continental drift theory. So Wagner came up with the idea that continents are not fixed but move slowly over the Earth's surface. Okay, so this theory says that continents, they float and move around on top of a softer liquid like layer beneath them. Okay. Here, now you know that changes in the environment have caused plants and animals to adapt and change over time for better survival. Next question. In 1953, S.L. Miller created primitive earth conditions in the laboratory and gave experimental evidence for origin of first form of life from pre-existing non-living organic molecules. The primitive earth conditions created include. So you have 4 options. You have to select the correct answer from these options. Let's have a look at the answer. See, option number D is the correct answer here. High temperature volcanic storm reducing atmosphere containing methane, ammonia, and other gases. So let's have a look at the answer. Okay. Now, Miller, he gave the experimental proof for the chemical evolution. Clear? So he simulated the conditions present on the primitive earth in the lab. Okay. So he simulated these conditions which were present in the primitive earth. So these conditions were high temperature, volcanic storms, reducing environment. Reducing environment means no free oxygen was present, and instead of oxygen, methane was present, ammonia was present, hydrogen was present, okay, and water vapor, which is H2O. Okay, now the experiment produced simple organic compounds such as amino acids, including alanine, glycine, and aspartic acid. So here in this image, you can see this is the setup created by Miller. So in this large flask, he introduced these gases, methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and water vapor, and he used electrode to create the electric discharge. Clear? Now, because this electric discharge provided energy for the breakdown of the bonds and for the creation of the new bonds, and in the end it was observed that amino acid was formed. Okay, so you can say this is the proof of chemical evolution. Next one, variations during mutations of meiotic recombinations are. So options are random and directionless, random and directional. Option number C, random and small. Option number D, random, small, and directional. What is the correct answer? Okay, option number A, random and direction, is the correct answer. Now let's have a look at the explanation. See, mutations during meiotic recombination are random and directionless. Okay, so these mutations, They can happen by chance, and they do not follow a specific pattern or purpose. So Hugo de Vries, he was a scientist. He was working on the evening primrose plant. Okay, he suggested that mutations can create new traits quickly, and these new traits can help form new species. Now, mutations, they are sudden, they occur unexpectedly, they can pass down from parents to offerings and continue to appear in the future generation as well. Okay. Now, due to mutations, variations occur. If these variations are beneficial, then only they will be inherited. Then only they will be selected. Okay, but Charles Darwin, he believed that changes in the traits happen gradually and are shaped by the environment to help organisms survive. In contrast, Hugo de Vries thought that mutations can cause abrupt changes that are not necessarily guided by the environment. The next question. Now, in a certain population, the frequency of 3 genotypes is as follows. Okay. So, what is the likely frequency of capital B and small b alleles? So, they have given you the frequencies of the homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, and heterozygous individuals. Okay. So, these are the 3 genotypes. You have to calculate the frequency of capital B and small b. So, let's have a look at the answer. Okay, according to Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, this is the equation p square plus 2pq plus q square is equal to 1. Now, let's have a look at the explanation. Okay, now the likely frequency of capital B will be. Okay, so capital B, homozygous dominant plus half of capital B, small b, because this heterozygous contains only one dominant allele, one capital B only. So after putting in the values, you will get the answer 53%. Similarly, you can calculate the frequency of small b, okay, using this formula. Again, you can see in heterozygous, only one small b allele is present. So you will half it and you will get the answer 47%. Next question, among the 5 factors that are known to affect Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, 3 factors are gene flow, genetic drift, and genetic recombination. What are the other 2 factors? Okay, so let's have a look at the answer. See, the 2 factors that affect Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, mutations and natural selections. Okay. Now, what is mutation? This is a random change in an organism's DNA sequence, which can introduce new alleles in a population. Now, these mutations can be beneficial, harmful, or even neutral. Beneficial mutations give an organism an advantage, allowing them to survive and reproduce more effectively. Now, over generation, these advantageous mutations can accumulate in the population, leading to the evolution of new traits and potentially new species. Now, some mutations, they improve an organism's trait, helping it to survive or reproduce better. These are known as advantageous mutations. Now, if enough changes happen over many generations, new species might form. Okay. Now, what is natural selection? Natural selection, this is a process where organisms with traits that help them to survive better tend to have more offerings. Okay. Now, natural selection, it is of 3 types: stabilizing, directional, and disruptive. What is stabilizing selection? More individuals with mean value are selected. In directional, more individuals with non-mean value are selected. In disruptive selection, more individuals with peripheral values are selected. This is an image showing you stabilizing direction and disruptive selection. Next, what is founder effect? Let's have a look at the answer. See, a small population become isolated from a larger source population. So imagine there is a large population, single large population, which is the source population, and people are migrating from this population to another area. Okay. Now, the gene pool of this new population will show differences from the original population. Okay. Now, drastic changes in allele frequency can lead to formation of a new species, means the genetic traits in the small population can change a lot over time. Now, these changes are significant enough and they might eventually become so different from the original group that they can be considered a completely new species. Now, the isolated individuals are called founders, and this is known as founder effect. Now, the small group that separates is known as the founders because they are starting a new population. Okay. Clear? Now, the way their genetic traits change and lead to a new species is known as the founder effect. Here in this image, you can see there is a parent population and individuals are migrating to a new area. And you can see in this image, population after a couple of generations, here the allele frequency has changed. In the end, you can see the allele frequency has changed. It is very different from the parent population, and now this new population can be considered as a new species. Next question, who among the Dryopithecus and Ramapithecus were more man-like? Let's have a look at the answer. See, Ramapithecus were more man-like. Okay, it walked erect on hind legs, ate hard nuts and seeds like modern man. Okay, the shape and structure of Ramapithecus' jaws and teeth were similar to those of the human, suggesting it had a similar way of eating. Now, Ramapithecus developed over time from earlier species known as Dryopithecus. Now, Dryopithecus looked more like an ape and had arms and legs that were about the same length. Dryopithecus is thought to be an early species from which both modern men and modern apes evolved, meaning that human and ape share this species at a distant ancestor. Now, next question, by what Latin name the first hominids was known? Okay, let's have a look at the answer. So, answer is Homo habilis. Scientists believe that one of the earliest type of human-like creatures or hominids were Homo habilis. The brain capacity was 650 to 800 cubic centimeters, which is a way to measure how big their brains were. Okay, now they probably did not eat meat. Okay, they used to eat mostly plants and other non-meat food. Next question, among Ramapithecus, Australopithecines and Homo habilis, who probably did not eat meat? So again, a very straightforward question. Now, Homo habilis probably did not eat meat. Homo habilis, an early human ancestor, likely did not include meat in his diet. Okay. Now, Homo habilis was the first species to resemble humans with a brain size ranging of 650 to 800 cubic centimeters. Okay. Now, these creatures, they were the first human-like being with brain capacities, as we have discussed, 650 to 800 cc. Next question, you have to state and explain any three factors affecting allele frequencies in the population. Let's have a look at the answer. So, factors affecting allele frequencies are, first one is the mutation, okay, which is a random change in the genetic material or the DNA, leading to new genetic variations that serve as a raw material for the evolution. Okay, there are two types of mutation, chromosomal mutations and the gene mutations. In chromosomal mutation, there is a change in the number or structure of the chromosomes, such as Down syndrome. Okay, in gene mutations, there is an addition, deletion or substitution in the DNA sequence, like sickle cell anemia. Then next one is non-random mating. So this means that mating or breeding is not occurring randomly, but rather some selection is taking place. For example, in birds, females often choose brightly colored males. So this leads to certain specific genes being passed on more frequently. This is also known as sexual selection. Okay. Next one is gene flow, also known as gene migration. So this refers to the movement of the individual from one population to another, where they breed and thus transfer new alleles from one gene pool to the another. Okay. Now, for example, if a bird migrates from one island to another island, okay, and breeds with the local bird, new genes are introduced into the population. So this increases the genetic diversity of the population. Next question, gene flow occurs through generations. Now, gene flow can occur across language barriers in humans as well. If we have a technique to measure specific allele frequencies in different population of the world, can we not predict human migratory patterns in prehistory and history? Do you agree or disagree? You have to provide explanation to your answer. Now, let's have a look at the explanation. Okay, so the people move and they live in different areas. They mix their genes with others over time. Now, studying how genes spread across different regions helps us understand how populations of people have changed and moved throughout the history. Now, scientists look at how common certain versions of genes are in different groups of people around the world. Now, by doing this, they can guess how people have moved and settled in different areas over time. A human genography project is a study that aims to map out where humans came from and how they moved across the globe by looking at genetic information from people worldwide. Okay. Now, by examining the genetic material found in these cells, such as genes and chromosomes or the mitochondrial DNA, scientists can learn our long-term history as a species, including where we came from and how we have spread across the planet. Next question, how do you express the meaning of word like race, breed, cultivars, or the variety? Let's talk about breed first. How can you define breed? So breed basically refers to a group of domestic animals or plants that have a similar appearance and behavior. For example, if you look at all dogs of a particular breed, the size, color, and nature would be quite similar. Additionally, they have specific features that distinguish them from other breeds. For example, Jersey cow is known for its high milk production, which is distinguished characteristic. Okay. Now, the concept of breed doesn't occur naturally. It results from selective breeding. Now, this means that humans have chosen specific animals or plants to breed based on desired traits. Okay, clear? Now let's move on to the next question. Okay. So next is cultivar. Okay. So cultivar is a technical term used in agriculture or botany. Okay. Cultivar is essentially a plant or group of plants that are categorized together because they share certain specific properties. For example, mango tree of the same type or rose flower of a particular kind. Okay. Now, these plants are selected based on their desirable characteristic. For example, a mango cultivar might be chosen for its exceptional sweetness, or a rose cultivar for its unique color. Now, propagation is used to maintain cultivars, which means creating new plants from a single parent plant through methods like cutting, grafting, or the tissue culture. So this ensures that each new plant retains the same desirable characteristics. So basically the full form of cultivar is cultivated variety. This means the variety has been cultivated by humans and did not occur naturally. What is variety? So this variety, okay, in the plant kingdom naturally arises, meaning it is not created by the scientists or the farmers. Okay, for example, different varieties of the wild tomatoes are found. A notable feature of variety is that if you grow new plants from its seeds, those plants will be exactly the same type. So this is referred to as true to type. This means that there is genetic stability and the characteristic remain the same in the next generation. Next question, when we say survival of the fittest, does it mean that option number A, those which are fit only survive? Option number B, those that survive are called fit. You have to comment on this statement. Okay, now in the struggle for existence, individuals with favored variations have competitive advantage over those with less favorable variations. Okay, now fit individuals are those who survive and reproduce. Now it means that it's not enough just to stay alive. Okay, producing the next generation is also crucial. If an individual is surviving but unable to reproduce, then in an evolutionary sense, they are not considered fit. Now, these fit individuals produce more offerings compared to less adapted individuals, meaning their genes are more frequently passed on in the population. As a result, favorable traits become more common in the next generation. For example, in bacteria, those with antibiotic resistance who are fit tend to multiply more. Next question, enumerate three most characteristic criteria for designating a Mendelian population. Let's have a look at the answer. C, characteristic criteria for designating a Mendelian population are, so first one is that the population must be sufficiently large. So this means that the population should not be small, but rather quite large. If the population is small, the effects of genetic drift or chance events will be more pronounced, and Mendel's law will not accurately apply. Okay. Now the second point is that there should be a free flow of genetic material within the population, meaning individuals should be able to reproduce sexually. This implies that genes can be exchanged freely without any barriers. Okay, the third point is that migration should be either non-existent or very minimal. If people keep coming and going, the gene pool will become disturbed. Therefore, in a Mendelian population, migration should be negligible to ensure that the genetic composition remains stable. Next question, migration may enhance or blur the effect of selection. You have to comment on this statement. Okay. Let's understand first the meaning of migration. So migration basically refers to the movement when individuals shift from one place to another. Okay, there are two types of migration. First is immigration, which refers to when individuals leave a population. Okay, what is immigration? It is opposite. It occurs when new individuals join a population. Okay. Now, immigration can bring alleles that provide. Okay. First of all, better adaptations and the trait. Now, if an immigrant brings in an allele that provides better adaptation, such a gene that offers disease resistance, it could be beneficial for the population. And this can increase the population chance of survival as well. Okay. Now, immigration can also introduce traits that are not selected by the nature, meaning that they might not be useful according to the environment. So sometimes these new traits are not helpful for the population. Okay. Let's understand the effect of immigration as well. If an individual carrying the allele for the best adaptation leaves the population can lose that useful gene. So this can reduce the population overall adaptability as well. Okay, so migration can be either enhance the effect of natural selection. Okay, so if migration introduces alleles that are beneficial according to natural selection, the effect of selection is enhanced. For example, if a drought-resistant gene is introduced, it can help the population survive drought conditions. However, when alleles that go against selection or are random enter through migration, the effect of selection becomes blurred. This means that variations within the population increases, making it difficult to see the clear effect of the selection. Next question, two organisms occupy a particular geographical area, say desert, how similar adaptive strategies. Okay. Now taking examples, you have to describe this phenomena. Let's have a look at the answer. This is basically convergent evolution. Okay, so what is convergent evolution? Where two unrelated species, okay, they are under same environmental pressure and they are evolving similar traits. Okay, so they don't have a common ancestor. These organisms, they are not closely related. They are evolving similar traits independently because they are adapting to similar environment. Example 1, Okay, streamlined shape in sharks and dolphins. Okay, both need swift movement in the water. So similar habitat lead to similar adaptive features. Example number 2, spines, which is modified leaves, and thorns, which are modified stems. So both provide protection. All right. Now they are found in distantly related plants. Here, so these are the example of the convergent evolution. Next question, we are told that evolution is continuing phenomena for all living things. Are humans also evolving? You have to justify this statement. So let's have a look at the answer. See, the research suggests that despite modern technology and industrialization, humans continue to evolve. So humans are evolving. So in the last 10,000 years, human evolution has speeded up 100 times, creating more mutations in the genes. So these mutations can cause variations. Okay, and these variations can accumulate over time. They can accumulate over generation, leading to the formation of new species. Now there are certain clues that show human evolution is ongoing. It is occurring. First is development of lactose tolerance. Okay, now genes controlling lactose digestion typically shuts down after the infancy. So the humans, they are not able to digest the lactose. Okay, they have lactose intolerance. But humans in Africa and Northern Europe, they are developing lactose tolerance. They have developed lactose tolerance about 5,000, 6,000 years ago. This shows that evolution is occurring. Now, wisdom teeth. Okay. So our ancestors, they had bigger jaws. But the modern human, they have smaller jaws. Because we are eating cooked food, we are eating soft food. Okay, so we don't require wisdom teeth. And this wisdom teeth, okay, this will disappear in the future generations. Okay, so this is expected to disappear as well because it is not at all required. It is a vestigial organ. Next question, had Darwin been aware of Mendel's work? Would he been able to explain the origin of the variation? You have to discuss this. Let's have a look at the answer. See, Darwin could have explained the origin of variation if he knew about the Mendel's work. Okay, Darwin gave the concept of natural selection. Okay, but he didn't know how variations occur. Clear? Now, different forms of individuals in a population are related to different form of alleles of a gene. So usually genes have 2 alleles. Okay, so these individuals in a population, how they are related? They are related to each other as they carry different forms of that same gene. They carry different forms of alleles of a gene. Okay. Now, gene expressing adaptive traits are naturally selected. Means the genes, okay, which provide survival advantage, these beneficial genes. Okay, we know that traits are controlled by genes. Okay, so these genes which code for a particular phenotype, okay, these genes are selected. They are inherited in the next generation as well. Okay, so gene expressing adaptive traits, beneficial traits, or traits which help the organism to adapt to the environment, they are selected by the nature and they become more abundant, and the less adaptive traits, they will not be carried on to the next generation. Now, over time, these accumulated traits lead to species change and environmental adaptation. So these species, they are slowly adapting to the environment. They are passing on these beneficial traits to the next generation as well. Okay, so now they are becoming better suited to the environment. Okay, so with this, we end this session. I hope this session was quite knowledgeable for you. We'll meet you in the next session. Thank you very much for listening.